Since their first contact with the Europeans during the 16th century, the indigenous people of the North American soil have always been viewed as inferior to those who were subjugating them. This notion of Native American inferiority has continued to persist even into modern times, despite Reformation efforts for other groups such as women and African Americans. According to SSIR, how and where power is held and exercised is embedded in and supported by society's dominant narratives. This phenomenon is constantly explored throughout the interaction between European settlers and the indigenous people. Harking back to Columbus's first encounter with the Native Americans, an account of his experiences was recorded. The inhabitants are all, as I said before, unprovided with any sort of iron, and they are destitute of arms, which are entirely unknown to them, for which they are not adapted, not on account for any bodily deformity, for they are well made, but because they are timid and full of terror. Columbus's record included his personal bias as he continually emphasized what the indigenous people lacked from a European perspective, while not acknowledging what the Europeans lacked from a Native American perspective.
Thus, from the first encounters with the Native Americans, this idea of being simple-minded and uneducated was present. This is an unjustified label for the Native peoples, as they have been living in isolation from the rest of the world, and should be celebrated for being able to provide advancements within fields of science, politics, culture, and more. As time progressed, the concept of the need for the spread of a European lifestyle began to take control, which was manifested in the American ideal of manifest destiny. This sense of duty that there is a need for the assimilation of Native peoples into a more refined society was completely unnecessary and irrational. In addition, the stereotypes of being brutes and barbarics created narratives about indigenous people which have always been negative, depicted in popular culture as savage individuals who are poorly dressed, inadequately educated, and wear face paint. However, this is a prime example of a group of people being misrepresented. This misclassification of the indigenous people invalidates the reality of their beautiful culture and lifestyle.
The solution to this misrepresentation of indigenous people can be found through the use of education. This was explored in Baldwin's A Talk to Teachers. The purpose of education, finally, is to create in a person the ability to look at the world for himself, to make his own decisions, to say to himself this is black or this white, to decide for himself whether there's a God in heaven or not. By using education as a tool, propagating true knowledge is the essence of defeating misrepresentation. Paramount to the impact of education is the need for indigenous people to understand themselves and their rich heritage. Empowering individuals to rise up and shatter obsolete and false stereotypes allows for the preservation of their true identity. In addition, it is necessary for the re-evaluation of how Native American history is presented. Based on surveys conducted by Mandy S. Pradas from EndNote, improving the quality of and access to Native American curriculum benefits all students. For non-Native students, it can lead to greater awareness and compassion. This is all in an effort to combat the popular culture that has developed around indigenous people, that being loosely dressed, feather-bearing, tomahawk-wielding people. This misrepresentation of indigenous people is extremely dangerous, as this false portrayal can be found within mediums of movies, performing arts, and literature. Alongside that, Dr. Star Yellowfish explained, "You have lessons that were being taught to our parents and grandparents, still being taught to kindergarteners and third graders." From this, we can see that false narratives are passed down throughout time, and without any initiative to correct them, it will remain in the status quo. In a sense, despite the archaic stereotypes of being unrefined and savage, Native American culture actually embraces the beauty of nature and promotes strong communities. This philosophy is quite distinct from that of modern society, which disregards nature and is home to reserved relationships. Thus, Native American practices and beliefs can have a profound influence on American society, which is lost to their lack of voice and representation. In a report by Cision, we can see Native American individuals like Douglas Williams work hard to benefit his tribe, demonstrating a high sense of responsibility and devotion to his community. Alongside him are many other individuals trying to shift the archaic perspective that has been placed on the indigenous people, revolutionizing those false narratives. Should they be allowed to succeed, the impact they will have will likely bring an end to the improper portrayal of indigenous people.